We're doing Parshas Ki-Tetze. It's on page 1046 if you want to follow. And you don't have to follow, but you're welcome to.
First and Rabbi, can we please learn in the merit of Rosh and from Kila?
Sure.
Thank you.
So it begins, Ki-Tetze la-milchama al oivecha, when you go out to war upon your enemy, and it says, and Hashem will deliver them to you, and you'll capture people among them, right? You'll capture people. So what's we're going to hear here is that when you go out to war, right, what happens when you go to war? So one of the things that happens is you capture people, right? There's not only killing and there's not only destruction, but you actually capture people, right? You can capture an enemy, somebody can give up, right? You have prisoners of war. So here, it's one of the very common things that happens in war is because people become very animalistic, and often the men will attack the women, right? They'll attack the women for themselves, and this is what it's referring to here, that you went out to war and you've captured people. And now the next line says, "V'isa v'shivya eshes yafas toar." In the English, you can see, and you'll see among those you've captured a woman who is beautiful of form, and you will desire her, and you may take her to yourself for a wife. So here you find the Torah is explaining a fact of human nature, which is that a man goes out to war, and he captures people, and one of them is a beautiful woman, and so he wants her. He's desiring her, right? And of course we find in the world that the soldiers, they rape the women. That's what they would do. So here the Torah is not telling you that that's what you're allowed to do. The Torah is saying that you have a desire for her, you've captured her, you can have her as a wife. You can marry her if you'd like. That you're allowed to do. Now, why does the Torah tell us this? Is that because the Rashi tells us that the Torah is speaking about the fact of the Yetzer Hara, that there is such a thing as a desire within people, which is not necessarily always a positive desire. Sometimes it's a very negative thing. And this desire, in this case, has a man's animalistic desire to be the conqueror, and he's not only going to capture the stuff, the treasures of this country, but he's going to take the women. And so here the Torah says, you think that one thing is we understand that you have human desires, but you can't just go and take people and use them. Right? So here it says, you want to take this woman, and you desire this woman, you can marry her if you'd like. So this is certainly not the preference of the soldier. The soldier's not looking to marry a stranger. He wants to just take her, right? But the Torah is telling us that. But then it goes on. I'll read it to you in the English. It says, "You shall bring her to the midst of your house. She shall shave her head and let her nails grow. She shall remove the garment of her captivity from upon herself and sit in your house, and she shall weep for her father and mother for a full month. Thereafter you may come to her and live with her, and she shall be a wife to you." Right, so here it's saying the following. The Torah is speaking to the Yetzer Hara of the person, right? The person's human desires. And it says, okay, you desire this woman, you have to keep in mind that this is a human being. This is a person. And you have to understand that they have rights, you have obligations to that person. You can't simply just take a person and use them as the world does. So if you want this woman, you can take this woman, you can marry this woman. But in order to do so, it says first you have to bring her into your house, right? So they explain it means you bring her home. You imagine the soldier comes home, an 18-year-old kid comes home, brings a woman to his house. He's living with his parents, right? You bring her home. It says she has to shave her head. She has to let her nails grow. That is to say that the immediate infatuation he has with her physical form is not going to be so attractive for a little while. She's not going to take care of herself, right? And she's going to be living in his house for 30 days. And it says she should cry over her mother and her father. Either they were killed in the war, or she's not going to see them for a month. After that month, if you want her, now you can have her. Now you can marry her. The point is that the men in all of the pressure and the anxiety and all that's going on during the war, they want to rape this woman. The Torah says you can't do such a thing. You want this woman, you feel attracted to her, perhaps you can move into your house with your parents. Can you imagine? What the Torah is doing is it's taking away the heat, the passion, right? And it's saying, if you want her, then you have to know, you have to live with her for 30 days, see what she's like. Have her in the house. Bring her home to your parents. See if your parents like that you doing this. Make it that she's not attractive to you totally because of how she looks. Get to know, right? No, she's not going to be dressed the way she wants to dress. She's not going to look the way she wants to look. She's going to be a captive in your house, and she's going to sit there depressed for 30 days because you've taken her away from her world. Now, after all that, if you still have a desire to marry her, then you can marry her. That's what the Torah is saying. The Torah is saying, it says, Lo divra Torah yetzer hara. The Torah is only speaking about the fact that a person has these desires. And therefore, the Torah says you have to restrain yourself, but you don't have to kill the desires. If a man has a desire for a woman, he's allowed to marry the woman, and then he can have relations with her. You simply cannot have relations, and you simply cannot take her in the heat of the moment and say, okay, I'm going to marry her, because that is the perfect introduction to divorce, which is what the parsha is going to talk about shortly, right? To marry a woman simply because of how she looks, right, with no understanding of her personality or her cultural background or her beliefs or her goals, all you're doing is setting yourself up for a divorce. That's not to say that every divorce is for that reason, but you can pretty much assume that every time that this would happen, you're going to end up with that, because it's not going to work. You're moving in with a person. It's like, when I talk to young boys about dates, I see the difference between, like a 20-year-old young man and a 25-year-old young man when it comes to their dating, when they want to date to get married. So the young guys are always asking me and are always discussing, how does she look? It's the first thing they all want to know, how she looks. And while physical attraction is important, right? You can't be married to someone who you're not attracted to physically, but that is so important in a young guy that's all they think about. Like the first thing they'll ask, the second thing, and the third thing will all be about how she looks. And then they'll start talking about the personality. And I try to explain to them, she's 20 years old, 19 years old, 21 years old. She's going to be 30 and 40 and 50, and she's going to have children, and she's going to age just like you're going to age. And if you marry her because she's a 19 or 20-year-old beauty, she is not going to be necessarily the same in a few years, and then you're going to have nothing. And that's exactly what the Torah is talking about here, is that this man goes out in all the passion of war and the feelings he has. As soon as he sees this woman, he wants to attack her because she's so pretty, right? It says, no, but you can have relations with her, sure, if you want to marry her. You want to marry her, this is what you have to do to marry her. By the end of the process, the yetzer hara, the desire, the lust is gone. Now you want to marry her, you know her. Now that's allowed, and then the Torah allows it in such a case. It bends because of the yetzer hara, but it doesn't give in to it. That's the important difference. But there are many ways of understanding this. Let us look at this in a different level for a moment. Let's look at this in light of the fact that this parsha is always read during the month of Elul. And when it says, the wording is a little different. Ki-Tetze lemilchama, when you go to war. So, alo ivecha, on your enemy. Who is your enemy? The real enemy of human beings is yetzer hara. It's your desire within you that tries to get you to do what you want to do now. Right? That's the yetzer hara's job. The yetzer hara is often described as a little animal inside of you, and what it wants is that whatever it wants it now. That's what the yetzer hara says. You're hungry? I want to eat now. There's no kosher food? Doesn't matter. I want to eat now. You just had meat and there's only milk? I don't care. Right, that's how the yetzer hara is. So you have to discipline the yetzer hara. The yetzer hara just wants to feel good. So here, you're going to war with your yetzer hara. Right? And so this is what happens. So it says you find this Isha Yafas Torah, this beautiful woman. Right? So you have to take this beautiful woman, and she has to come into your house for 30 days. That's what it says. Now, if you notice, the Hebrew has a funny way of describing 30 days. Normally, when you talk about 30 days, you'll see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sixth line down, second and third word, Yarech Yamim. Usually when it talks about a month in Hebrew, a month is a Chodesh. Chodesh is a month. Yarech also means a month. In fact, you'll find both of these written. If you ever read a ksuva, a wedding document, you look at the wedding document, and it says that when it talks about when you're married, it says L'chodesh Adar, L'chodesh this, L'chodesh the month of this. But if you look at a divorce document, at a get, it doesn't say Chodesh, it says Yerech. Yerech it also means month, right? It's here meaning month, but it's a different word for month. What's the difference? because Chodesh comes from the word Chadash, new. So when you talk about something that's a Chodesh, you're usually referring to it from the beginning of the month, because it's new. It's Chadash means, the word means new. And Chodesh is a new time, a new period. It's a rebirth. All right? That's what each month is. It's the recreation of the moon. Every month the moon disappears and suddenly it comes back again. So that's Chodesh. Yarech has to do with the completion of a month, the end of a month. And therefore, in the type of marriage, for instance, you talk about Chodesh because we're beginning a marriage, we're beginning a new life, everything is new and changed. When you talk about Yarech, it means we're ending. It's finished. The month has ended, and the feeling that comes from that means the end. So here it says that this woman comes into your house for 30 days. What is the month that it's talking about? It's the month of Elul, the month that we're in now, which is when this parsha is always read. That's the 30-day period that you have to struggle with your Yetzer Hara. At the end of that 30-day period, what do we have is Rosh Hashanah. Right? That's why it doesn't say Chodesh, it says Yarech, because you need 30 full days to prepare yourself for Rosh Hashanah. Of all of the holidays, there's a lot of preparation for Jewish holidays, but really the preparation in each one's different. The preparation for Rosh Hashanah and as well as Yom Kippur is not like preparation for Pesach. Right? You have to clean your house, you get rid of the chametz, you have to bake all your sponge cakes and all that. That's one thing. That's for Pesach. For Rosh Hashanah, it's an internal preparation. It's looking into yourself. How are you? How are you reacting? How am I growing? Who am I? Am I becoming the best that I can? Have I done things wrong? How do I fix it? That's preparation for Rosh Hashanah. It's an internal preparation that you have to do. If you don't prepare for Rosh Hashanah will be a failure. Because the whole idea at the end of the 30 days is Rosh Hashanah. And that's the judgment of how your next year is going to be based on how you were this past year. And we understand that the last month is the month when we suddenly resensitize ourselves to the idea of who we want to be. And therefore we work on ourselves more so that when we enter Rosh Hashanah, we're much more prepared. But if you don't prepare for Rosh Hashanah, you end up really with nothing. So the idea is that you have to do that preparation. That's what it's saying here. You find this woman. That's like you find your way to come close to God again. You need 30 days of preparation. That's why the word Yarech is used here rather than Chodesh, because it's not saying you need to start 30 days. It's saying you need a complete, full 30 days in your hands when you walk into Rosh Hashanah. So if we understand that on a deeper level, this is how the Orach Chaim explains it. That this is really talking about preparation for Rosh Hashanah. That's on a secondary level, right? The Torah can be understood on many levels. On this secondary level, you can see that it says it's talking about that concept. When it says that she goes for 30 days and she cries for her mother and father, who is their mother and father? This is a pagan. This woman is a pagan. You've gone out. It's talking about the days of the Torah. They've gone out. They found these non-Jews who are in the land of Israel, and you conquered them. Right? That was a mitzvah to conquer these people. And you want to take this woman for yourself. Who is this woman? She's a pagan. She worships idols. Right? This is not like a sophisticated person. This is a person who's a pagan. So she cries for her mother and father. That is, she cries for her traditions, for her idols, for the life that she had, for the types of things she had over that 30-day period. And that's exactly what the same point, which is during that 30-day period, we do that as well. We prepare ourselves. We look at the idols that we've created for ourselves, so to speak, be it a real idol, be it money, be it anything. An idol in our belief is anything that you give power to. Right? We all give power to money. Right? We do things for money. Right? That's what we do. You go to work for money. You do things for money. But you can't attribute an enormous amount of power to money. But yet people do all the time. Right? For the right amount of money, you have people who'll do almost anything. It's just what is the right amount. Right? You have to find that right amount. But that means that money is more important than anything. And we don't believe that. If you do believe that, or you do act that way, that's like idol worship. Because you're giving power to money. And the only real power in this world comes from God. So to attribute power to anything else is idol worship. So that's what she's doing. She's crying over the lifestyle that she's missing, that she's giving up, in order to become part of the Jewish people. We have to do the same. We have to cry over the times and the things that we've done over the past year in order to become close again to God, so that we can now be accepted again on Rosh Hashanah. So the Orach Chaim says that that's what this is referring to on a deeper level. But certainly the literal level is true as well. That in the days of fighting and you go out and you're going to find a woman, this is what you have to do. What the Torah does is that you see that here you find a very early reference to the idea of human rights, which the world, you understand, if you ever read the history of the world did not give human rights to humans. It gave human rights to the most powerful people. Right? The adult males, right, for the most part, had human rights. But if you look in places like Greece and Rome, even 1,000 years after the Torah was given, you can see that these civilizations gave no rights to women. They had no rights for anything, no rights for citizenship, no rights for ownership, no rights to own land, no rights to do anything in the great civilizations of Rome and Greece. And here you see the Torah itself saying, a man has a desire to rape a woman. Well, you can't do that. You can't just go and attack someone, even in the heat of battle. Even when you're uncontrolled, you become animalistic when you go to fight. Nevertheless, you have to keep your dignity. You have to remain human. You can't do these things. So if you feel that it's not that you went and you saw this woman and because she's so beautiful you want her. If you really feel an attraction to this woman, take her home. Let your mother and father meet her. Move her into your house for 30 days. You can't touch her. You can't do anything with her. But allow her to stay in your house for 30 days. At the end of 30 days, you still feel this isn't infatuation, this isn't lust, then you can marry her. But then the Torah goes on. If you look at, now it changes topics, but it's really not changing topics. Well, that's what it says. It says, the next paragraph, if a man will have two wives, one beloved and one hated, and they bear him sons, the beloved one and the hated one, and the firstborn is the hated one's, then it shall be that on the day that he causes his sons to inherit whatever will be his, he cannot give the right of the firstborn to the son of the beloved one. In other words, a man has two wives, right? From his one wife he loves, one he hates. The one that he hates had a child first, so that's his firstborn son, which inherits extra. He gets extra. So he can't switch and say, I'm going to give the child to my loved one, right, rather than the other one. But how does a man have a wife who he loves and a wife he hates? Who is married to a woman that he hates? Where do you have such a thing? Right? Well, what woman is married to a man that she hates? So, of course, there's temporary times. If your person's in a divorce, then there are times when you might actually hate someone. But in general, how do you have such a case where you have a wife who you hate, and then she has a child, and you live with them your entire life, and then the person dies? So that means he never divorces her, he just hates her. So the Torah says that's talking about the woman in the first case, that the man actually thought he was in love with her, but he wasn't. He was just aggressive. He was a soldier. He was fighting, and he took this woman, and he waited the 30 days, and he had relations with her, and he realizes this woman has nothing for me. There's no relationship here. There's nothing. I was just attracted to her for her looks. So now he has this woman that he hates in his house, right? The idea being is that here you see the Torah saying the result of what happens in the first case. Yes, people have yetzer haras, people have desires. The Torah understands that. We're not going to tell you that. We're not going to tell you you can't get married. Right? Sexual desire is a real desire, but you also can't allow it to govern you. And here's what the result of what happens. And then it even goes further. If you read at the bottom of the page, if a man will have a wayward and rebellious son, and who does not hearken to the voice of his father and the voice of his mother, and they discipline him, but he doesn't hearken to them, this is called the Ben Sora Mora. The Ben Sora Mora is the rebellious son, the son who does the opposite of what the Torah wants. He's criminal. And he's criminal, and you can't control him from the time he's born. The Talmud says this has never happened. There's never been such a case. Never will be such a case of such a child who is as is described here. If you read on, you'll see it's described as a horrible person, a person who's an animal in human form. That's basically what it's talking about. So why does it tell you this? Because first a man goes, and his desire is to take this woman because she's beautiful. He takes her, he marries her, right, for the wrong reasons. Now he doesn't like her. So you have a child. Who is the child? This is the child. The child is this offspring. Of course, this never happened. The Torah is sending us a message. You don't negate a person and turn them into a sex object. As soon as you do that, then the ramifications are enormous, not just for you, but for the children and for generations to come. You can't do this. The Torah is extremely stringent about this. The Talmud is as well, and Jewish lifestyles like this. People ask me all the time about, when that very often men will not come into physical contact with women. Right? You're not related to them, right? And they're adults, so you really shouldn't, because it's a fence that the rabbis created so that we don't end up having inappropriate relationships. It helps a fence. So if I don't, for instance, if I see a woman and I have affection for her, I care for her, but I can't kiss her unless she's related to me. And if I can't kiss her, then I can't hug her. And if I can't hug her, then chances are that many of the other things that would happen may not happen. It's not fail-safe, things happen, but it helps keep that distance. It keeps a certain formality between the sexes for that reason. Why is it? So people, they always want to tell us because women are dirty, women are inferior, women are unspiritual. None of that's true. The Torah is very explicit. The Talmud, the Halacha, is very explicit. It's because men have a very difficult time distinguishing between the object, making a woman into an object, into a sex object, rather than a human being. They have a real problem with that. When men see a woman who's physically attractive, they think about her physical properties. That's what they think about. And therefore the Torah is saying you have to treat every human being with dignity. Right? Yes, a woman is beautiful, and a woman attracts you, and you want to have relations, but that's not what you think of her. She is much more than that. She has an intellectual ability, emotional ability, spiritual abilities, and physical, right? Just like men do. But with men, it's much more of an issue. And therefore, we have all of these fences that are put up in order to keep us from doing these things. And that's exactly what it's referring to here. It's the same idea, that you can't objectify a person. The Torah is talking about a man who goes out and he sees a woman, he objectifies her. He doesn't know anything about her, doesn't know her name, doesn't know how, is she kind, is she cruel, does she care about people, is she creative, is she, what kind of a person? He knows nothing. All he knows is that he wants to sleep with her because she's beautiful. That is objectifying a person, turning them into a sex object. Because of that, so much of what we do in our lives is governed by this. That we don't, the fact that we don't have affectionate touching between the genders, right? That's one thing. The fact that we strongly encourage and we push people to dress in a modest manner and to act in a modest manner, which are really the same, are for that reason. Because you can understand that if a man comes into contact with a woman who's dressed suggestively, that he's going to think of her suggestively. Now, it's not her fault necessarily, but he has that problem. Men have that problem, so he's going to think of that woman in that way. He's not going to think of her as an intellectual. He's not going to think of her emotions, about her creativity, about who she is, what wonderful things she's done or can do, or what she can teach him. He's only going to think about one thing. And therefore, all of these things that we do are all to try to cause a man to think of a woman as a person, not as a sex object. And this section deals with that in a very, very fundamental way, and then the Talmud and the Jewish law extrapolates an entire book of law of how to deal with that. So when the Torah is telling us that you have to treat all human beings, men, let's in this case talking about gender, men and women, equally, with the same respect and the same dignity, and it will cause you a number of hardships, but you have to do this. It was the only book in the history of the world that did such a thing. The civilizations of the world weren't like that. They bought women, they sold women, they didn't treat them, they weren't educated. If you look back in the Middle Ages, when you had the kings and the queens who were royalty, they were illiterate. Who wrote for them? Jewish women used to write for them. Jewish women were educated because they had every right to be educated. Because they're more than just a body, but the rest of the women in the world were not. And so therefore, if you wanted the Queen of England wanted to send a letter to the Queen of Spain, they had to bring in a Jew to write the letter because they didn't know how to write. This shows you the difference. So when society likes to tell us that the Torah is sexist, the fact is the Torah distinguishes by sex, and that's literally what the word sexist means. What they mean is that it's bigoted in a sexual manner. That it's a negative, and that's just not true. The Torah it takes the realization of who people are, and it says we have to do certain things in order to make sure that people treat each other with respect. And sometimes those things are difficult, and they certainly are. In all of our lives, there are times that we'd like to hug someone and we can't hug them, and there's absolutely nothing there, right? There's no sexual attraction, but you have to follow the rules because you don't want to victimize and objectify the opposite gender for that reason. So the Torah is extremely strict about that. So that on that level, that's what this is talking about. Now, if we read about this Ben Sora Mora, this rebellious child, which started at the bottom of the last page, continues on 1049, it says, what does he do? So it's interesting, if you look closely at the words, it says, if a man will have a wayward and rebellious son who does not hearken to the voice of his father and the voice of his mother. So that number one is, we know a rule. The Torah never says extra words. The Torah is as succinct as possible. It says as little as possible, and you have to understand from the words what it really means. So one thing, right away, there's something here. It says, this person has this rebellious son. How do you know he's rebellious? So it starts to tell you. First thing is he doesn't listen to his parents. He doesn't listen to what they say. Right, so, but that's not what it says. It says he doesn't listen to the voice of his father. He doesn't listen to the voice of his mother. Well, why doesn't it say the Torah say he doesn't listen to his parents, or doesn't listen to the voice of his mother and father? Why the voice of his father and the voice of his mother? It's extra words. There's no need for that. But so the point is that one of the things we can learn from this is that the mother and father aren't saying the same thing. Now, if the mother and father are in agreement, which is a very simple rule of parenting, that when you deal with a child, the parents are a unified force, right? Because kids are real quick to play one against the other, right? We have it all the time. When, mom said that if it's okay with you, that you'd give me $100 and I could go to the store. And then I'd go and ask my wife, did you say that? No, I didn't say anything like that. I said that I can't take you to the store. That's all I said. But they will go to one against the other, right? It's very common, right? Because we're not saying the same thing. But if we unify ourselves and we say, we're going to, for the sake of our child, we're going to raise our child. This is how we're going to raise a child. This is the discipline we're going to use. Therefore, we have one voice. So if you have one voice, so then that helps the child be raised correctly. First sign that there's a problem here is that the mother and father have two different opinions of things. They're not unified. That's why he doesn't listen to the voice of his father and he doesn't listen to the voice of his mother, because they're not saying the same thing. So one of the ways of having a child who's not going to grow up to be the way he should, even though we never really have a case like this one, is to not have a unified voice. But then it goes on, and he doesn't hearken to them. Then his father and mother shall grasp him and take him to the elders of the city and the gate of the place. They shall say to the elders of the city, the son of ours is wayward and rebellious. He doesn't hearken to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. So what do they say? That our son is rebelling. He doesn't hearken to our voice. So now they just changed it. Before, he doesn't listen to the voice of his father and he doesn't listen to the voice of his mother. So at the very least, he doesn't listen to their voices. Right? The voice of the father and the mother are different, but here it says our voice. Now it's singular, and in the Hebrew it's the same way. That is to say that the parents have come to the realization that we never spoke to him with a single voice. So he doesn't listen to our voice, because we never spoke to him that way. We always spoke to them as, I say what I want, my wife says what she wants. And of course the kid gets confused, he gets mixed messages, and then he can get away with whatever he wants. So then it goes on, and he is a glutton and a drunkard. So the Talmud says the amount of food he has to eat and the amount of wine he has to drink is so much that it's also not possible that this should ever happen. And all the men of the city shall pelt him with stones, and he shall die, and you shall remove the evil from your midst. Now, this is also a problem. That you imagine, as I said before, this has never happened, and the Talmud says it will never happen. But here you come in, and this child is totally rebellious, and the punishment is that they kill him. But he didn't do anything. He's just rebelling. He didn't murder anybody. He didn't steal. He didn't pillage. He didn't do anything. He just didn't listen to his parents. And nowhere in the Torah do you find that not listening to your parents, you receive the death penalty. I mean, we have all these examples. You break Shabbat, and there are certain circumstances, the death penalty. Murder, you get the death penalty. Certain things. But not listening to your parents, none of us would be alive, right? We all didn't listen to our parents. So why would it be that they get the death penalty? So the point here is it's a very interesting realization, which is the Torah tells us, based on the Talmud, that they are punishing him for what he's going to become. Right now, he's only potential evil, but he hasn't done anything. So it says that how he is now and how we see he's going to be, he's going to be so bad that we're going to stop it now. That is to say, they see it's evident. We're not fools. We don't have blinders for our eyes. He's going to kill someone. He is going to hurt someone. He's criminal. That's what they're dealing with. We're talking about a kid who's a sociopath, who's a real criminal. And therefore they say, why should we make it that he has the ability to hurt himself and others? Let's stop it now. Now, of course, again, since this has never happened, and it's never going to happen, so we have to take this out of the realm of our emotions, because we'd say it still feels odd, right, to kill someone for what they're going to do, right? It's like a science fiction movie. The point is that in the world of philosophy, if you stop someone from doing something wrong, you've helped them. Right? You have helped them. The Torah is giving us this understanding that when this child has the potential to do these terrible things, and it's not that he might do them. Every indication is that he will do them. He is already criminal. I don't know if you read in the paper recently about this. It was like this 8-year-old kid who killed somebody, and he has a history of theft and fires. He sounds like a sociopath. Like like he has some type of mental illness, but they finally had to arrest the kid for what he did, and he was 8 years old. So this is what it's referring to. So you imagine an 8-year-old kid is acting like this. By the time he's 20, what he's going to be like. So the Torah is just giving us an indication that the idea is, outside of the feelings of the people, that if we know that something bad is going to happen, we have a responsibility to try to stop it from happening. We don't just simply let it happen, laissez-faire. Here you see that they went and they acted in a very serious way in order so that the future shouldn't be worse. Because now he's going to die, so he rebelled against his parents. If we let him live another 2 years, he'll be a murderer, and then his soul will be totally corrupted. So the point being is that they have an anticipation of what would be in the future. And it goes on as to what happens. So that's just that one section. But interestingly enough, that's not what this parsha is known for. This parsha is known for many things, but it's probably mostly known for the laws of marriage and divorce, which are found in here. Now, we haven't discussed it yet. And all the commentaries, they want to know, why is it that they're found here, the marriage and divorce? Why are they found in this week's parsha? Like, we've already gone through 4.5 books of the Torah. Right? By now, you see people getting married all the time. Yeah. Why are the laws here? Right? And also here, we understand that the book of Devarim, the book that we're in now, is really, this is the book for the Jewish nation. This is what Moshe, looking back to the Jewish nation, telling them what they did wrong, and giving them laws that pertain to the nation, to the people, not to individuals, but to the nation as a whole. And here's why they have the laws of marriage, for instance. So why would the laws of marriage be there? So the commentaries tell us that the reasoning is because when it comes to a happy event like a marriage, that's not personal. That is for the Jewish people. It is also personal. But for instance, when you bless somebody when they get married, the most common traditional blessing is that you say you should build a bayis ne'aman b'Yisrael, a faithful house among the Jews. So you'd say, why don't you say a faithful house? Right? In other words, you should have a house of, a Torah-filled house. We say among the Jews, because when it comes to something like marriage, right, it has an effect on the whole Jewish people. Good Jewish homes are a microcosm of the Jewish nation. Each of our homes, so we fill our homes with Torah, with Chesed, with all the things in our homes, is like a world to itself, and therefore our world is a mini world to the world itself. And the Torah is telling us that when you build a marriage, you're not just making a marriage for you, and you certainly are making it for you, but you're also making it for the entire Jewish people, because you are a representative of that, and it carries on. It has an effect. One of the ways you know this is that, if a person has, let's say we have two types of people affect a minyan. When you have a minyan in shul, there's two types that affect a minyan. One is a chassan, and one is an ovel. A chassan is a groom, and an ovel is a mourner. So a mourner, for instance, comes to shul, right? If he has a minyan in his house during his shiva, so that's a shiva house. There's special rules about a minyan. But when the mourner leaves the shiva house, because let's say he doesn't make a minyan, there's no minyan in his house, he has to go to shul for the minyan during the shiva. So when he goes to shul, so now does the shul's minyan become a mourner's minyan because the mourner is there? The answer is no. There's all of these different rules and different prayers that are said in a mourner's house, and you don't say it in shul, even though the mourner comes. The mourner is still a mourner, and he still has to follow all of his rules, but the community doesn't follow his rules. Now let's contrast that with a groom. A groom, the worst week of his marriage, right? They know it's the chassan, during the Sheva Brachas week, the week of his marriage. If he comes to shul, the entire minyan changes. You don't say tachanan, certain prayers are sad prayers, because the groom is here. It's happy, right? So why is it when a person loses somebody, they're mourning, the community doesn't change? But when somebody is happy and they got married, the minyan of the community changes. You change it. The difference is because a marriage, right, is a communal activity. It's a public thing. It affects the entire Jewish people. That your family has a direct effect on the entire Jewish nation, while your mourning doesn't. That's you. That's private. That's personal. So you see that when a mourner comes to shul, it doesn't have an effect on the shul. But when a groom comes to shul, it does. And it's the same concept here.
Isn't that sad? Not sad. Excuse by himself.
Yeah, that's what. Do you know when you're feeling down?
Yes.
Don't you go by yourself?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why. It's a natural thing. When people are happy, they want to share. When you make a wedding for a child or your own wedding, you want everyone to be happy. The whole world should be happy because I'm making a wedding. Even people you don't like so much, you want them to come and be happy. But when you're sad, you go all by yourself. You don't need a whole world. You don't need 1,000 people. You go all by yourself. You isolate it. One of the common signs of a person who becomes depressed, right? Mentally depressed, as a psychological illness, is that they go by themselves, they isolate themselves. That's how you know they're depressed. It's one of the ways you know. When a person's happy, they don't isolate themselves. They're happy, they want to share with everybody. One of the worst things is to have your child get engaged and you have nobody to tell, right? You have no one to share it with. Right? But you don't feel that way with sad things. So that's why it's like that. Okay, we next have the law here on 1049, the next chapter, that deals with finding lost objects. Right? It says, "You shall not see the ox of your brother or his sheep or goat cast off, and hide yourself from them. You shall surely return them to your brother. If your brother is not near you, and you do not know him, then gather it inside your house, and it shall remain with you until your brother inquires after it. So shall you do for his donkey, so shall you do for his garment, so shall you do for any lost article of your brother. They may become lost from him, and you find it. You shall not hide yourself." These are the laws of lost objects. In legal understanding, you find a lost object, you have a responsibility to return it. It's a Torah mitzvah to return it. That's if the lost object has a worth. Right? If it's not, if I take a big pen, I've used it for 6 months and it's almost finished, I just throw it somewhere. So it's not mine anymore. Like, I don't care about it. So you don't have to return that. But if it's something I would care about, I'd lose a watch, for instance. Right? I'd lose a wallet. So there you have a Torah obligation to return it. And if you can't return it, you have an obligation to keep it until you can return it. We're told that one of the things that Eliyahu Navi will do before the Mashiach comes, when he arrives, he will tell everybody, this object belongs to this person, this one is this person's over here, over there, so that you can fulfill this mitzvah. And there are people who have like a box in their house where they keep stuff that they found and that they can't find the owner to, and they save it for their entire life until the Mashiach comes and they can find out whose it is. Right? It's not as common, but that's how you fulfill this. So this is what it says. But interestingly, if you look at Rashi, and you don't really have to look at it, I'll just paraphrase it for you. Rashi is bothered by the fact that it talks about such sort of silly things, like a guy loses a piece of clothing, right? He loses small things, inconsequential things. And it says that if a person loses things that and it goes on, right, about all of these different, you shall not see the donkey of your brother or his ox falling the road and hide yourself, all of these things. The idea being, Rashi says, the reason is because that it has all these, is to tell you, it makes no difference what it's worth. If it has a worth, right, even if it's a little bit of money, so you have to fulfill this mitzvah. That's what Rashi says. But the commentaries explain about this is that we're talking here about a mitzvah from God. Right? God gives a mitzvah. He says if you find a pen worth $5 or you find a diamond worth $50,000, you have to return them both. They both have to be returned. So if you tell me I have to return something that's worth a lot of money, I understand that. But tell me I have to return something that's not worth a lot of money, what's the big deal? Why is the Torah telling us that? What's the need to tell us that? You have to return things, you have to return things. Why tell me, oh, but don't forget, the things that aren't worth a lot of money, you also have to return. Because the point is that to you and me, if we find a diamond that's worth a lot of money, we know you have to return it. But to God, it's all the same. Right? What's a lot of money to God? $50,000 a lot of money to God? How about maybe $1 billion a lot of money? What's a lot of money to Him? Nothing is a lot of money to Him. Every single physical transaction that we have in the world of business is nothing to God. Because whatever it is, He's got more. Right? It means nothing to Him. So the point is that when it comes to the physical world, we have to also have a perception that in the real idea is that the mitzvah has nothing to do with the worth. The mitzvah is to return a lost object. The worth of something is only in your head because it's inconsequential. Like, is it worth your while to bend over and pick up a penny? Maybe, maybe not. Well, how about a $100 bill? Nobody would say no for that, right? The same effort, you would do that. So, because for us, a $100 bill is worth something. Certainly, I would bend over and pick it up. A penny, maybe not. Right? To God, it's all the same. And that's why Rashi says that even the money even something that has no worth, you have to do that too. Because it's telling you that in God's eyes, all the worth is the same.
If you pick up a penny, you can put it in a tzedakah box. I mean, if you, you see a penny on the ground.
Yeah, well, it happens to be that if you find money, unless you find it in a certain way, like put in a hiding place, or it's or somehow there's a sign on the money. Otherwise, money has no way of you can't return money.
I remember it's on I was in seminary. I found it on the sidewalk or something, on the road, and then I remember I was allowed to keep it because of where it was.
That's right. Because if you go into your, let's say, a hotel room and you open a drawer and there's a $50 bill in there, somebody left it there, and while you can't go and say anybody lost a $50 bill, tell me, but if somebody comes and says I left money in that drawer, so that's a sign, right? That's how you know it's their $50 bill. But if you find $50 on the ground, there's no way anybody can identify it. Sure, if the guy happens to know the serial number, maybe, right? But other than that, they can't. So money is considered something you don't have to return unless it was in a certain place or it had a rubber band on it. And the guy says, I lost, 20 bills with a rubber band. Some way of identifying it. But simply walking down the, like say you walk from here to the mall and there's a $10 bill on the ground, you don't have to return that because it's no way of identifying it. That's like your example.
What about if it's a luggage of money?
With what?
A luggage of money.
A suitcase full of money? Well, then the suitcase is now a sign. Somebody will say, I lost a suitcase full of money, right? That's not like just finding bills on the ground. There's a suitcase, right? So that's a sign. There's so many things in here that we can talk about. We really haven't touched on most of them. Let's just talk about this. Just one more thing here. I mean, there are so many. Interest is in here, that laws of interest and so forth. Let's look at the laws of interest on page 1057, in verse 20. You'll see the word interest written there. It says, "You shall not cause your brother to take interest of money or interest of food, interest of anything that he may take as interest. You may cause a Gentile to take interest, but you may not cause your brother to take interest." So let's try to understand this. The Torah is telling you that if I come up to you and say, listen, I need to borrow $100, you can't say to me, okay, you can borrow, but you got to give me back $105. That you can't say. But what I can do is, let's say I come up to you and you have a car rental business, and I say, I don't have a car. I need to rent a car for a day. I'd like to rent a car from you. Can I rent this car? So you say, sure, it'll cost you $20. Right? Now the car only costs you to rent it out $10, but you're making a $10 profit, right? Nothing wrong with that. That's called business. So why, if I'm in the money business and I've got money, that's what I have in my business, and you need money. You want to buy something. You don't have any money today. You'll have money tomorrow. So you want to buy something today. So I'll give you the money. I'm not allowed to make any profit on that. I can't charge you interest. That's profit. Right? Profit on money is called interest. But if you come to me and I sell you a car or I rent you a car, I can make money on it. So what's the difference?
But does brother mean Jew or it means brother?
Well, it means Jew.
Oh.
So what's the difference?
What's the question again? About renting a car?
Any business that you do, right? You need something, I have it, and you're paying me to use it, right? So now you need money. So you want to borrow money from me. You want to use my money to buy a house, let's say. I'm not allowed to charge you interest. That interest is just profit on money. Just like saying you use you need a place to sleep tonight. I will rent you a room in my hotel. It's $100 for a night. So I can make $100 on that. That's the same thing as interest, but I can't give you the $100 and say give me back 105. That I can't do. The big difference. But there is no difference. There's a difference. I'm in the car business, the hotel business, the money business. What's the difference? Because the Torah is telling us an important thing. It's telling us that when a person in general borrows money rather than an object, it's very often a sign of desperation. Someone's in trouble. That's why they're borrowing money. Because usually, the average person, I don't mean someone who's lost their job. That's different. We're talking about chesed then. We're talking about a regular person. They've got a job. Right? They're normal people. Excuse me. And they come up to you and they need money. So, and they want to borrow money from you. Why do they want to borrow money? Well, something must be wrong. Because most people living within their means, having jobs and so forth, don't need to borrow money. If they have to, something's wrong. Which means that if you charge them interest, they're just going to get worse and worse and worse in debt. They're never going to get out. And you know that I owe money to that place, so I'll borrow $100 from you. I'll pay off that guy. Now I owe you 105. I go to that guy, I borrow 105, pay you off. Now I owe him 110. I'll never get out of debt, right? I'll never be able to break that cycle, right? So the Torah is saying this following: the Torah is saying that since money in general is usually borrowed because you're in trouble, and it says here that you can't do this to your brother. Your brother is an expression meaning you can't do this to another Jew, but to a non-Jew you can. So if charging interest is bad, then it should be bad for non-Jews too. But the point is, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with charging interest. It's just like selling somebody a car. What's wrong with it is the Torah forbids it because of the situation the person's in. And the truth is, if your brother came to you, right, and you have a good relationship with your brother, and he needed to borrow some money, would you charge him interest? One of your kids came to you, would you charge them interest to lend the money? And let's say, they pay you back and blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't even think about charging them interest. Your kid comes to your money because they're in trouble. Something's happened. Now, you're going to charge them interest? It's ridiculous. So every Jew should look like every other Jew as if they're your brother, and that you wouldn't charge interest to them. That's how we show this. Is it evil to charge interest? No. So therefore, you can charge interest to a non-Jew. Why? Because they're not your brother. You can't charge them usury. In other words, you can't charge them a large amount of interest. You can charge them a normal amount. You can't persecute a non-Jew. You can't treat a non-Jew badly, but you don't have to treat them like family. That's the difference. Now, with your family, your family can walk in, open the refrigerator, and take something to eat, right? A stranger can't do that. But a stranger comes to your door and they're hungry, you'll give them food, but they have no right to walk into your house and take food out of your refrigerator. Family does. Non-family doesn't. Doesn't mean that you treat the non-family bad. You also have to feed them, but they don't have the right to take food, right? So here also, your brother comes to you for money, you should give him money. You don't want to make it worse for him, so don't charge him interest. But a non-Jew comes, you can charge him interest. That's business. You can't be cruel, but you can charge them. The Torah is telling you here that all Jews are brothers. We're all related. And we have to remember that. When we deal with other Jews, we're dealing with family. And you see it all the time in Israel. I always like to make a joke about it. I'd go to Israel. I remember when my kids were younger, I remember speaking to them, standing in the street and speaking to them in English, and a woman just walks right up to me and has never seen me before, and in Hebrew she says hello, and I say hello, and she says, you should not speak to them in English. They have to learn Hebrew, right? That's what she tells me, right? Like, who is she? Like, she's my mother? She's my sister. She's a Jew living in Israel. She's related to me. So they'll tell you what to do, right? The cab drivers in Israel will tell you what to do, just like a cab driver in New York, except the ones in Israel think you'll do it. Okay? The ones in New York, they don't. Because you're family. That's what the Torah is telling you. All Jews are family. You wouldn't treat a Jew in a way that they should have to be in worse trouble because of you. They're coming to you for help. You have to help them. But it doesn't mean you have to treat non-Jews badly. You have, like I said, if your kid comes to you and they're hungry, they can walk right into your house and take food out of the refrigerator. If a stranger comes to your door and they're hungry, they can't walk into your house and take food out of the refrigerator. But you are still obligated to give them food.